Welcome to the Lifting Lindsay channel. In today's video, I'm going to be walking you through some great options that you can do at home or even at your gym if you don't have the leg extension machine. So let's dive on into this. So before I show you the exercises, I want to show you the leg extension, and I kind of want to break down this movement for you. So you're going to notice a few things as I go through the leg extension machine. One is there is some degree of hip flexion, whether that's 90 or you leaning back a little bit more, and we'll talk about the differences of those in a few minutes. But first I want you to notice that we are getting into some degree of hip flexion. That's what this is, okay? And then we're working the quads through knee extension. So we're trying to straighten out the leg while being slightly flexed and extending at the knee. And that's what we're doing. And typically, where the exercise with the leg extension machine is the most difficult is right up at the very top when your leg is straight. So what we're doing is we're working the quads and overloading them in a more shortened or contracted position. So with most things like squats, you're going to be working them and overloading them in a lengthened position. And so that's what makes the leg extension a bit different than a lot of other movements that we see working the quads. Is those other movements are really working them in lengthened position. There's really only this one position here where the quads are at its shortest, is in this position here, okay? So that's what makes the leg extension different. So when I show you these substitutions, I want you to keep something in mind. Typically, when I get on social media or get on videos and I see people saying, this is a substitution for leg extension, they just start throwing all these other quad dominant movements out. And that's okay, but it's not a direct substitution because we're really not working the quads in that shortened, contracted position. And so if that's the goal, to truly substitute for that, then I'm really excited to show you some good substitutions that you can do from home with maybe kettlebell or bands or dumbbell. So let's dive on into this. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need is some sort of bench. Most people have a bench or access to a bench at home. Now, a lot of times when people do quad dominant work from a bench, they just kind of keep their leg on the bench and kind of go through this motion. But there's a few things. One, we're gonna hit our foot. It kind of limits the range of motion that we can go through. And as I show you these options, it's gonna be pretty hard with the options that we have because everything's gonna hit here at the bottom. So one thing that we can do is take a roller, kind of like this. They have some that are a little bit smaller that may work better, but take a roller like this, and I'm actually gonna have you put it right underneath your knee here. And what that's gonna really do is it will slightly elevate it, and it can really help us work through a greater range of motion as we go through these different alternatives. So option number one, if you have kettlebells at home, this is an incredible option for you. It is super easy, and setup literally is just the best. What you're gonna do is you're just gonna slip your foot right through that, and we're gonna bring this underneath here, and you can actually just make sure you hold on as you go through this movement. We can really go through a nice leg extension here. So this is super, super easy to do and set up relatively nothing, right? Super easy to come in and set up. So what I have here is I have an ankle strap and I have a dumbbell. This will work great for those of you who don't have kettlebells, but I've also found that the strap has really taken a lot of that. The wobble that you get with the kettlebell, you don't get it as much with this strap. So take the strap, set your foot at a slight angle, don't have it straight, but at a slight angle, and then you're gonna put the strap under and we're gonna loop it through, okay? And so hopefully you have a strap that is long enough here. Mine was great, it was perfect. So now we can go through this same movement. It's actually easier if you stand up and then kind of go back down. Now we can go through this same movement, but this time with a dumbbell. And I do find that the strap allows it to be a little bit more stable, not so wobbly. So I personally prefer the dumbbell and the strap. And this is really nice because then as soon as you get a little bit stronger, you can increase the weight, and the strap just helps, you know, with most of these dumbbells, I'm able to strap it in pretty easily. So that is a good one. Okay, so the next option that we have is with a band. So keep in mind, what's been awesome about all of these options is they are just like the leg extension machine, right? We are in slight or some varying degree of hip flexion. The dumbbell or the kettlebell, when it's furthest away from the joint that it's acting on, it's going to be the hardest. So at this top position here, it is going to be overloading it the most and be the hardest, just like in a leg extension machine, or I should say most typical leg extension machines that are found in commercial gyms. So it's the perfect setup. This is another great setup, great option for you, but we're doing it with bands instead. So let me show you how I do this. So I'm gonna go to the opposite end, and you can loop it around, really kind of bring it through right there. And then I'm gonna make sure that it comes, I'm actually gonna tilt this up a little bit so I can bring it right under, and it can be kind of towards the middle of that bench, or even slightly over is fine, but relatively somewhere there. Now I'm gonna hook it right here while I set up. So that's really nice that I can do that while I set up. Now, most of the time when people do this, let me show you what they do. They take the bands and you step into the band, and then it's just resting. And I'll pull my leggings down so it doesn't hurt my skin. And they go through this motion with just the band, but I find that when I get to the top, the band wants to roll up. Do you see that? And it's like every time I go up, it's like rolling up again. Or it just causes a ton of discomfort at my ankle. And so what I like doing, you can leave it there if you want, but what I like doing actually is I like using an ankle strap, and then I just have one of these that I hook here. I put this around my ankle, and then I take this, swing it around, and I attach this to the band. Oh, so much easier, y'all. So much easier. So much more comfortable for this movement. And then I sit back and get into place, hold myself, and I can go. Now this is going to be way harder at the top. That's just how bands work, right? So not so hard right here, peak difficulty right there. That's usually what we want with the leg extension. Now, there has been some really great studies showing that if you really want to maximize quad growth, especially of the rec fem. So we have one quadricep muscle that actually crosses the hip joint. So hip positioning is really influencing that particular muscle, which is the rec fem. So if we want to work the rec fem in a bit more lengthened position while still overloading in a short position, then you can lean back a lot more and go through this motion. You can do the same exact thing in a regular leg extension too. I'll actually set the back pad of the leg extension way back, and I lean back so that my rec fem is lengthened more, and I'll go through this motion here. Okay, so next I'm going to be showing you another alternative that you can do just with bands and a bench. It's kind of a nice setup. Now keep in mind at the bottom there we are getting a little bit of hip flexion, and then as we go through the top range, kind of this plank movement, straightening out our legs at the top, we are overloading or making it more difficult in that shortened contracted position. Now I want you to kind of take a look at my setup here. I'm using like dumbbells to wrap the band around, and that way I can add some resistance to this movement. Now, maybe for your strength, just going through this motion without resistance, maybe that's all you can do. And that's great, right? That's your level of strength. But as you get stronger, maybe you'll need to start incorporating in the band here. So let me explain my setup. I've wrapped the band around the dumbbells that are on the edges, and then I put plates in the middle because otherwise those dumbbells would roll towards each other as I went to the very, very top. So this allows the dumbbells to stay in place, the band to stay really good in that position on my calves, and I can go through this movement. So maybe this is going to be a better option for you for setup. Really, whichever one you choose, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're choosing the one that you prefer the most. Easy setup so that you can get in, work hard, and you don't have to spend like 30 minutes setup time. I know when helping clients through home alternatives, the time it takes to set up a lot of things often deters them from even doing the exercise. So just choose the exercise that's going to be the easiest for you, the most enjoyable. But these are great alternatives that will help you mimic that same exact movement and overloading the quads in more of that shortened position like we find with the leg extension machine. So hopefully today's video has been really helpful for you. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz, but also let me know if there are some other alternative exercises that you want. Maybe you can't do a movement because it hurts you and you want to know, maybe is there another option for you? Or maybe you work out at home and don't have a certain machine in the gym, but maybe you want to know how to mimic that movement and get the same resistance profile as well. Just let me know, guys, in the comments below.